Mary? Mary, do you want to light candles tonight? Yes, I will call you up when it's time. Hello, Gwen.
Shabbat Shalom. You can either go into page 43 in your songbooks or page 129 in your Siddurim, your prayer books. Mizot ola min hamidbar mekuteret mohu levona. Mizot ola min hamidbar mekuteret mohu levona. Dodi livani lo harawe bashoshani. Bashoshani Hinach yafa enayich yonim mibalet samate. Hinach yafa enayich yonim mibalet samate. Bashoshani, Dodi Lirani Laharawe, Bashoshani, Libaptini, Achoti Hala, Libaptini, Achoti Hala, Uri, Tafonu Vovitema. Bashoshani, Dodi Lirani Laharawe, Bashoshani, Dodi Lirani Laharawe, Bashoshani, Dodi Lirani Laharawe, Bashoshani.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi Leah Berkowitz. This is our cantorial soloist, Rebecca Schwartz. I just wanted to make a disclaimer that I got a new tray of Invisalign, and this one has an extra piece that the other ones did not have, so I'm having a little bit of trouble speaking. And I know that you'll be patient with me. I thought it was going to be like this all year, but I have 2 more left, and then I'm going to be done in time for the High Holy Days. Awesome. So I feel like it's worth worth not being able to talk for a few more weeks to be done by then. So anyway, but it is wonderful to be able to celebrate Shabbat with you. And why don't we take a deep breath and welcome Shabbat into our hearts. And let's take a moment to welcome each other. Please turn to someone beside you or behind you and wish them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. What service are we doing?
Oh, 1. This is a poem called The Heart is Still Our Teacher by Mark Nepo. The old world is gone and still, one candle can light many, if we work with what we're given and resist the suffering in not suffering. The daily work is to remember that you can't fly with one wing, During adversity, we finally accept that our kinship is to meet below all names. No matter how we stray, we are taught by the rush of life that in the thick of it, we are always moving toward a greater sense of living. It is the blessing of the ordinary that awakens us to everything. And now I'd like to invite Mary LaRue to bless our Shabbat lights. We can turn to page 121 in our prayer book. You can use mine.
Oh, thank you.
It's already on the right page. So if you want to come here and read this.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lechad ligner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Mary. Shabbat Shalom.
Page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharim, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barhuni Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seititchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
On page 143. And so we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, often even unknown to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way that we are now. Never forget that you too, yourself, may be a messenger, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes.
And we turn to pages 138 and 139 as we welcome the Shabbat bride. Verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to 9, we rise and face the west, which is that way. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hayuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litehila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mikor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machashava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Idoreri, idoreri, ki ba'orech gumi uri, 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 shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla, boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha v'b'tzola, toch emunei, am sekula, bo vichala, lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We continue on page 146, and we remain standing for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, bechokma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakir kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Page 151. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
All this we hold to be true and trustworthy for us. You alone are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You are our sovereign and Savior, who delivers us from oppressors' hands and saves us from tyrants' fists. You work wonders without number, marvels without count. You give us life and steady our footsteps. You performed miracles for us before Pharaoh, signs and wonders in the land of the Egyptians. You led your people Israel out from their midst to freedom for all time. When your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously.
וגדלם יד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Ehamidenu, Shomreinu L'chaim, Ufros Aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. Page 164, we rise in body and in spirit for the tefillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechaker chaim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, samech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umidamelach, melech memit umechayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman ata l'hachayot hakol, Baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. Page 73. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. And may all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yirah na'avod.
Modi hanachnu lach, shatahu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avoteinu, ve'imoteinu le'olam va'ed. Sur chainu magen yisheinu, atahu ledor v'ador. Sur chainu magen yisheinu, atahu ledor v'ador. Modi manachnu lach, shatahu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avoteinu, ve'imoteinu le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed.
God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות. I know it's just a response. It's automatic. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, HaYisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMevarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom.
Please take a moment for a silent prayer.
Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen, amen. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
We pause in the heart of our service to offer a prayer for those in our community who are ill. We are thinking of John Madden, Rachel Margolis, Rabbi Heather Miller, David Harrison, Barry Cohen, Al Turetsky, Carrie Mazer, Joe Crinty, Rita Siegel, Stephen Witt, Ruth Cohen, Marjorie Backup, Alex Denon, Eric Schwartz, Richard Oder, Richard Barry Perlman, Paul Friedman, Chuck Katz, Lynn Katz, and Barry Steinbrecher. If there's a name you'd like to add to this list, please do so now.
Cheryl Blumenthal and Joanne Hirsch.
My friend Judy. George Burrell. Debbie Maddox, Connor Brenner, Steve Rosenberg.
Robin Elkheim, Grace Peroso, and Frank Scoberano.
We hold all of these names in our hearts as we join in a prayer of healing on page 371.
Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And just as we share life's difficulties, we also share life's joys. If anyone is celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, or any other good news, please share it now. Yeah, Michael.
My granddaughter Mason actually finished #1 in her entire grade in grades this year.
Oh, wow. So the valedictorian of fifth grade, yes. Yes, Sayana.
I was at our table with Father Rand, the Bucksman Five Fest.
Oh, yes, I need to hear more later about how our table at Pride Fest went, because I was sorry to miss it.
They had a wonderful Independence Day dance party at Klein Light. I was part of the show. And then this morning they had a Pride on that Shabbat there also.
Oh,
I took Shabbat services today.
that's really nice. Well, we're honored that you joined us. Thank you. Yes, Rebecca.
My husband Joel had a big birthday.
Yay, happy birthday.
And we like to say he finally turned 60, because I've been waiting for this for a while.
Okay. Yes, Rhea.
My grandchildren and great-grandchildren all do the Okinawa, and they got there safe and sound.
Oh, wonderful.
By that.
Nisiya Tova, safe travels for all of them. Yeah. I had a very nice experience today in that, so I've been writing the Divrei Torah for the 10 Minutes of Torah for the URJ. Merle's been proofreading them or offering comments on them for me before I send them out. And I've gotten some feedback from people, which is nice. And one of them actually called me at the synagogue, and I called her back. And she was very appreciative. She was very kind. And then I found out that I knew her kid, because he'd been my camp counselor, which is basically how it always goes. So so that was just funny. Jewish geography always amuses me to no end. What else are we celebrating? 4th of July. Oh, I almost forgot. Yes. All right. Well, for the last few weeks as I've been scrambling to finish up certain projects, including all of those Divrei Torah, and check things off my list before we start a new programmatic year and also before I go away to camp for 2 weeks. So I've been really sort of overwhelmed. And some of you know that I do sometimes fall into some internet rabbit holes when I am stressed out or procrastinating. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, do all the New York Times word puzzles, and then go back to sleep. I got Queen Bee today. Yay! Sometimes I do a deep dive on an artist or a movie or a television series on Wikipedia. I buy art supplies, or I plan and research vacations for months from now. So this week I reached into a new dark corner of the internet in my procrastination. I asked ChatGPT to write my sermon for me. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm not even really sure I know, ChatGPT is a natural language processing tool driven by artificial intelligence. I'm not sure exactly how it works, though there's a great story about it on last week's This American Life, if you need it, like me, needed sort of a lay person's introduction to it. But given certain instructions, ChatGPT is able to generate writing such as emails, essays, or code. There are also other AI programs that can create images. These can then be refined with further instructions. So as a creative person and as a writer, and I like to think as a thinker, I honestly had no intention of ever using this technology. But curiosity and my mental state got the best of me, and I typed in, write a sermon for a Reformed Jewish congregation about Parshat Balak. And it did, in under a minute, and it did a pretty good job. It was actually more concise than I usually am. While this is not something I planned to actually use, I thought that as long as I disclosed it, it might be neat to see what the AI had to say. And this week, I felt it was, even though I hadn't thought about this in advance, this week is a particularly appropriate time to try this technology, because in Parshat Balak, a king plans to curse a people with words and finds that he cannot dictate what other people say. A sorcerer loses control of his power of speech and finds God composing liturgical poetry by speaking through him. The entire story hinges on a moment where God opens the mouth of a donkey, giving it the temporary ability to speak, and it ends up being sort of the smartest character in the story. What better week to see what AI has to say about our ancient wisdom? So we'll take a few, so I want you to listen carefully, because I'm going to take a few moments for reactions afterwards. What you notice, what you wonder, and what surprises you. So here goes. Shabbat Shalom, my dear congregation. Today, as we gather to celebrate Shabbat and delve into the timeless wisdom of our sacred texts, we turn our attention to Parshat Balak. This week's Torah portion is filled with profound insights and valuable lessons that can guide us in our lives as Reformed Jews. Parshat Balak invites us to explore themes of perception, prejudice, and the power of words. It challenges us to reflect on how we view others and the impact our words can have on them. The story begins with Balak, the king of Moab, feeling threatened by the Israelites' presence. He seeks the assistance of a sorcerer named Balaam to curse the Israelites, hoping to weaken and defeat them. However, despite Balaam's initial reluctance, he ultimately accompanies Balak's messengers to the Israelite camp. Along the way, a remarkable event occurs. An angel blocks Balaam's path, visible only to his donkey. This moment serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes the eyes of an animal may perceive more than the eyes of a human. As Reformed Jews, we understand the significance of this story extends far beyond the supernatural encounter between Balaam and his donkey. It reminds us to examine our own biases and preconceived notions. How often do we make judgments about others based on superficial factors or unfounded stereotypes? How frequently do we allow our own perspectives to blind us to the inherent worth and value of every individual? Parshat Balak compels us to challenge our assumptions and broaden our vision. Just as the angel opened Balaam's eyes, we too must open our hearts and minds to see the divine spark within every person. Our Jewish tradition teaches us that each individual is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. It is a reminder that no matter our differences in appearance, culture, or beliefs, we are all interconnected members of the human family. Yet we must also recognize that words possess tremendous power. Balaam's initial intent was to curse the Israelites, but instead blessings flowed from his lips. This paradox illustrates the capacity of language to shape our reality. Our words can build bridges of understanding and compassion, or they can tear them down. They can uplift and inspire, or they can wound and divide. In a world often filled with negativity and vitriol, Parshat Balak challenges us to choose our words wisely. It calls upon us to use our speech to bring healing, to promote justice, and to cultivate love. Let us remember that our words have the potential to shape the world we live in. They can create a space where all feel welcome, or they can perpetuate discrimination and harm. As we engage with the teachings of Parshat Balak, let us commit ourselves to opening our eyes and hearts to the beauty and worth of every person we encounter. Let us strive to see beyond our appearances, to challenge stereotypes, and to embrace the diversity that enriches our lives. And above all, let us be mindful of the power of our words, using them to build bridges and promote understanding in our communities and beyond. May this Shabbat be a time of reflection and growth as we seek to embody the values and teachings of Parshat Balak. Shabbat Shalom. I did not change a word of that.
Wow.
And all I put in there was write a sermon for a Reformed Jewish congregation about Parshat Balak. I did, and I thought I would do that and then tweak it, and I didn't have to. And that was a little bit scary. So yeah, and it was funny because everybody laughed at Shabbat Shalom, my dear congregation, and then afterwards everybody stopped laughing because it was like, oh no, that is kind of what you might expect. So tell me what you thought. What did you notice? What did you wonder? What surprises you? Yeah, Bean. It did, because it's drawing from stuff that, I don't know how it works, but it's drawing from stuff that exists in the world. So if it's looking at other sermons, then it knows B'Tselem Elohim. Yeah. I don't know if it could spell it in Hebrew, but, probably, actually. Yes. I know. It's a little intimidating. Yeah. Nadine. You're thinking the AI is Jewish? Well, of course, because it's an intelligent life form. Of course, it's Jewish. Yeah. So, or maybe not a life form, but it's an intelligent machine. So, yes, Diana.
It didn't say what word came out of Balaam's mouth. That's the whole difference.
Oh, yeah, it did miss out on the Matovu part. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised about that, too.
But that's also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Discussing, I have a paper I did about this morning's, it was about the doing with binary thinking. That's what I brought up.
Yeah.
Black or white, not thinking in terms of binary. You're evil, you're good, you're bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's also very interesting because that means not only, so on the one hand, yeah, it left something out, but then on the other hand, it means it made choices about what the sermon was about. Though it's interesting because I probably would have, if you're talking about the power of words, would have talked about curses and blessings. They didn't really get in. It didn't really get into it. So yeah. Yeah, Victor.
Can you dress it up and change things?
Yeah. So I haven't tried that yet because I didn't have to, which was weird. I thought I was going to. So basically, what I've heard you can do is, so I started with write a sermon for a Reformed Jewish congregation about Parshat Balak. I could have then said. Write one in honor of Pride, or make it in. I don't know if I have to give it a new command in this same conversation, or if I have to start over again. But I could say, do one that would work for Pride Shabbat. Do one that would work for the 4th of July. I think the more complicated it gets, the more likely I would have to tweak it. You can refine it. Yeah, Rhea.
So I'm thinking every school child, they have to write an essay.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Yes, and the education world is bracing itself for this. And, plagiarism is as old as language. So that's why I made a point of disclosing that this is what I was doing and that the purpose was for us to experience this. Though seeing how well it did, I'm like, I'm really tempted to use it. And I really do pride myself. I would think I would do this better than a machine, but I really do pride myself on that. But then I'm like, well, I could see if one was blocked, that it might be okay to get started with the AI and then see what you can make from it. But on so many levels, so it's very academic. People in education and academia are really worried because they don't know exactly what they're going to do. So I think there are tools to detect it, but as it gets more sophisticated, because if you, I mean, I don't know how you could tell that this was AI. Now, and I think, though, one of the things that's really important about kids learning how to not use AI, and because I realized, so my dad and I had this running joke that when I would, when he would ask me a Jewish question, a lot of times I'd Googled the answer, and when he would find out I would do that, he'd be like, well, why did I have to ask you? And I'm like, because I knew what to Google. And also, like, I knew what to Google, and I knew what things not to click on. And that's what, and I think that's going to become a big deal in education. I think it already has, is the critical thinking, because it's how do you tell what's real and what isn't, and how do you learn the rules so that you can use this tech, how do you learn how to do these things yourself so you can see if the technology is doing it right. But yeah, it is going to have an impact on education. But then so did the internet, and so did the photocopier, and all sorts of other things like that. Yes?
They're getting
Victor.
back to actually writing essays in class.
Yeah.
Handwritten, no computers, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
basically, this is the only way to stop
Right,
something like this.
Right, and that's interesting because now being able to use a device is considered an accommodation, which it is for a lot of people who have some sort of challenge with handwriting. Well, that's another thing, because whenever we have the kids sign their B'nai Mitzvah certificates, they don't know how to write in cursive. A lot of them don't know how to write in cursive because it's not taught, because it's not something, having really nice handwriting is not a 21st century skill. Though it's always a nice surprise, yes. Merle.
So that was a very good sermon, except for the fact that your personality was missing from the sermon.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I was hoping someone would say that. Thank you, Merle.
That's why we come.
I know, yeah.
So,
That's why I'm still kind of hopeful, yes.
right, so that the missing part was sometimes the rabbit holes that you fall
Yes,
into.
yes.
To talk about a particular word, or to talk about a phrase, or to highlight a Hebrew word, or something that appeals to you.
Right, and it would be interesting to see, because you know some of the things I was working on, particularly for this Torah portion, if I had put in like a little more information, what would have come out. But I don't think you could be like, tell a story about my dad, because, yeah, that's where the limits come in. So you are missing a little bit of a human element. But it'd be interesting to see, like, so for instance, I know that for the High Holy Days, because of course I was tempted to try this, I know for the High Holy Days that I wanted to give a sermon that was centered around a certain story about the Baal Shem Tov. So I typed that into the ChatGPT, and I used Baal Shem Tov, and I used fire, which was like the main thing of the story. Apparently there's more than one story about Baal Shem Tov and the fire, but it did find a story with Baal Shem Tov and a fire. So it does have a strong capacity, but it isn't human. So it doesn't have life experiences. It just can draw from different other people's life experiences.
If I had gone to a synagogue that was not my own,
Yeah,
and that was the sermon,
yeah,
that would have been all well and good.
yeah. You might not have noticed if you didn't know what you were used to with the rabbi. Yeah, yeah. Well, because it's also, so this is actually a big part of the writer's strike in Hollywood, is that there's a concern, and actually I see why they're concerned, is that there's a concern that the writers are going to be replaced with AI, and there'll be like one person with an AI putting in prompts and then checking its work, or like punching it up or whatever, and then they'll like gradually be eliminating this entire profession. What's it going to mean for people who write fiction? What's it going to, it's very scary, but then again, it's like, but you like to think that there's something, the neshama, there's something in there that you need to, yeah. Anyway, Bart, you had something you wanted to say?
This is the fourth conversation I've had today about chat.
Really? Yes.
And it's the last place I expected about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we played around with it a little bit. You can get it on your phone. You can download it for free, put it on your iPhone. Anybody can. Where it worked. So we have one client who said you can't use artificial intelligence. You pay for human insight.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. We have another client, so we're not going to give you the project. We're going to give it to somebody else because they told us from the top that we need to use artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Third conversation. What was the third conversation? quickly,
Yeah,
but as you observe, it doesn't write in your voice.
right. But actually, there's a lot of my work on the internet. It probably could. And I'm going to try that next, but that's kind of scary.
The idea is to train it over time.
Right. So it can't yet. That's actually, and again, I think your day was sort of a good example, because some people don't want you to use it because it feels inauthentic or it's missing something, which is probably true. And then other people want you to use it because it's going to expedite getting things done, which is also true. So so it really just raises this question of like, where's the happy medium? And again, it still means that everybody needs to be knowledgeable, because for one thing, we're supplying all the information that it's drawing from, and also that somebody needs to read it and make sure that it makes sense. Yeah.
You're lucky that you were referring to ancient texts, because it only runs up to about 2021. It's not up to date.
Oh, interesting.
It's looking for the latest and greatest, you won't find it.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Gwen, you had something you wanted to say?
I was going to say about the accuracy thing. It doesn't necessarily cite things or say things that are true. There was that news article recently about a lawyer who used it to write a legal document, and it cited cases that were not real, and this lawyer did not check the document. They submitted it to
Right.
the court, and when the other side said, show us these cases you're referring to, they could not produce them. And they got very big.
I bet they did.
Because they lied in the court and claimed they had written this brief, and it was not true. And then
Oh, wow.
and then it was specifically ChatGPT, and it's
Yeah.
in cases that were not real.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I was thinking that law would actually be one of the first places where you could use it a lot, because there's sort of standardized information. Like, you know, if I hadn't put in like Reformed Jewish or whatever, this could have written me a sermon for a Lutheran church or an Orthodox synagogue, and it would have been different. But like, if you were trying to write something like in the American legal system, theoretically all that stuff's out there and it's somewhat uniform. But I guess it got creative.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because it's a topic I've heard of a lot. I mean, I am a writer as a person, and I am in a lot of communities full of writers, but I don't think it's a good tool.
You don't like it?
No, I
Yeah.
don't. And I think that it's interesting because people call it an artificial intelligence, but it's really not. It's really just a language model that it learns
Yeah.
necessarily from taking in language and reproduces it, but it can reproduce things that are accurate.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, and it's really sophisticated. It's really just a sophisticated version of when your phone or your email predicts what the next word's going to be. So that's really what it does. It just does that on a very sophisticated level. Right, exactly. So,
And I think it's interesting because the language in the sermon was not, at any point, it didn't feel unnatural.
yeah,
Except for the fact that it kept reiterating as brief words.
right.
It's a very unnatural.
That, yeah, which is not something, yeah, I don't think I've said that in a sermon in 20 years. But yes. What? That was what I was hoping for. But I was just, and that's actually why I wasn't afraid to reach. I don't think it's going to replace any of us. I just, but it was just interesting to see what it could do, and it surprised me. So I wanted to get and obviously it seems to have sparked a good conversation. Now it's like everything we talk about, I'm like, oh, I want to ask the chatbot that and see what it'll say. Mary, you had something you want to say?
Have a sense of humor.
Oh, good question. Well, it didn't tell any jokes. Right, it didn't, it was very vanilla, but it did have like a point. Like it was a 3-point, like it was like a 3-point sermon, which is pretty, it did have an arc. But yeah, it didn't have, I'm sure some of them are funny, but that's a good question. We should try
I wonder if you
it.
could ask for humor being in it.
I bet you could. I don't know. That's actually probably, again, I think the more complicated the request, the more likely you are to have some sort of weird blooper. Yeah, so I didn't know if it was going to know the word parshat or balak, and it does. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, Robin.
Impressed by both the tone of it and the level of, not reading level because we're listening to it, but it makes a certain assumption that the people who are listening have a certain level of intelligence. They understand words like cultivate and
Yes.
kind of things. And I wondered how it chose that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if you said create a sermon on this parsha for 8-year-olds,
Yeah.
they would come up with something different.
Right, like tell, or yeah, like could I use it to write a story about something for little kids? And what would, and it's not even that like could I or couldn't I, it's sort of like what would that look like? Yeah, so anyway, yes, Lisa, last comment.
Well, it's not about that, it's, you know, you were saying about kids not knowing how to cursive,
Yeah.
but I've been having to deal with a lot of legal documents in the last couple of months, and it asks your electronic signature.
Yeah.
So you still need, and this is why I'm shocked that the schools aren't teaching it anymore. Children still need to know how to cursive write their name.
Well, now they do. Now they do. And it's also, it's like, you know, I know people whose signature, like on the keypad, some people just do a squiggly line. And eventually, like, it's probably going to be a thumbprint or a retina scan. So I'm surprised it's not that already. But a lot of that is being, but that, you know, that is theoretically still something we need to know how to do. But it's interesting, just to contrast this, I was listening to a podcast, and one of the speakers said that she, as like a treat to herself, she was taking lessons to have better handwriting from like somebody who works at a museum. And it was just like the opposite of this. It was sort of like, because you do see that the more intense things get technologically, you do also see people be like, I want to like sit in the woods and be unplugged, or I want to learn how to write by hand, or I want to draw things. So again, it's something that as humans we're sort of going to be having a conversation with, but it doesn't, hopefully, it doesn't have to be in charge of it. So anyway, so that was interesting. And it's going to be tempting to do that again, but I will disclose.
Try putting in with humor.
Yes, and well, now that you have other requests, I'm like, now I kind of want to see if it can make jokes. Well, because I think that, yeah, because I've heard some things about comedians, it's like, I don't think it's going to be able to make jokes, but maybe it will. So, yes. We might be able to tell other people's jokes. I don't know that it would be able to generate a joke, because I don't know if it knows what's funny.
It doesn't.
What?
It doesn't.
It doesn't yet? You've tried it? Yeah, okay. All right. It's funny because that also, I'm sorry, so that also just sort of raises a question of like what makes us human. Right. And so far it's like being able to tell a story, being able to have personal life experiences that we can draw on, and humor seems to be very important. Yeah, because I remember, so when I was really little, there was a movie called Short Circuit. Did anybody watch this movie? So I loved this movie. My dad and I loved this movie. And there's actually, they try to figure out this robot gets struck by lightning and it thinks it's human. Or thinks it's alive, whatever that means. And the way that they, quote unquote, prove it is they tell it a joke and it laughs. Wow. Yeah, and I mean, it's showing other human characteristics, but that seems to be like, the scientist is like, seems to be the only way we can prove that it's human, is that it laughs. So, and I like
Data on Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I know who that is, but you'll need to give me more background information, because it is the next gen. No, I know that, because LeVar Burton was on that one. But I only ever watched it sort of out of the corner of my eye, because my dad loved it. So I don't actually know. I know Data is a machine, but I don't know exactly. He's an android, yes. As opposed to Spock, who is a Vulcan, which is different. Okay.
That's a whole other Star Trek.
That's a whole other Star Trek. Yeah. There's lots of rabbinic wisdom in Star Trek, and I actually tried to watch it recently, because I know that there's a lot of rabbinic wisdom in Star Trek, and then realized I can't get past William Shatner. So maybe I have to watch Next Generation. Okay. Ooh, Voyager. All right. So we are going to rein it in. See, the computer can't do this. The computer can't, yes. So we're going to continue on page 586 with Aleinu. And we rise in body and in spirit.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latek gidula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu ki goy ha'ar hatzah, velo samanu k'mishpachat ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu וגר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזה ושכינת עוזה בגבי מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, הם אלוהינו אין זולתו, כה כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום וחשבת אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, והארץ מתחת, אין עוד ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those who our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This week we mourn the recent passings of Marion Bertel, mother of Jeffrey Buchanan, and Adam Hoffman, husband of Lisa Landau. We are also observing the yahrzeits of Daniel Richard Baker, father of David Baker, Juliette Bennett, mother of Robin Margasak, Ida Edelstein, aunt of Joel Edelstein, Marilyn Gallagher, mother of Mary LaRue, Leslie Harris, aunt of Barry Steinbrecher, David Hyman, grandfather of David and Bill Hyman. Henry J. Lotto, father of Elaine Lotto, Sophie Rotman, grandmother of Ellen Horowitz Matz, Harold Schutzberger, uncle of Judy Miller, Molly Steinbrecher, grandmother of Barry Steinbrecher. If you'd like to add a name to this list, please do so now.
Pat Rudden.
The Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. We rise in body and in spirit. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divara chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'gala v'yisman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mivarach le'olam u'amei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudasha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, Amen.
Shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol
be seated. Continue on page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat chodsho v'ahava u'vrazon Inchilanu, Zikaron L'Maaseh V'Reishit, Ki Hu Yom Techila L'Mikra'e Kodesh, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu V'Charta V'Tanu Shabbat Chodeshecha Be'ahava u'v'ratzon Inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Chaim.
L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz b'te'avon.
I realized I didn't want to take a big piece because I know you all now eat this, and I want you to know which one I touched. Oh, does it? Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So we do not have services tomorrow morning?
No, we do not.
We do not have services tomorrow morning. Starting this Friday, weather permitting, we're going to be doing services in Wall Park across the street from on Church Road between Walgreens and Rita's. The ground is flat. I would recommend you bring a chair. There will not be streaming. And if there is bad weather predicted, either too hot or too wet, we will send out an email 24 hours in advance to let you know. Yes, Victor?
Are you sending out a memo on this?
Yes, there will be a memo. I'm giving you all inside information since you're here. So there will not be streaming during the summer because we don't know whether we're going to be inside or outside. So we hope that you'll be able to join us in person. If you have any accessibility concerns, please let us know. So we can, and if you don't have accessibility concerns and you'd like to get there a minute or two early to see if you can help people get their chairs set up and get their prayer books and things like that, that would be a very nice thing to do.
And it is very close to the parking lot. There's not a whole lot of walking.
Yeah, you could literally sit in the parking lot and still hear the service.
you
So if
could.
that's something you want to do, you can also do that.
Yeah.
How do you spell wall?
Just wall like a wall.
W-A-L.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes, it is where it was last year. All right. And if I remember correctly, last year when we did it, the ice cream truck went by. So, there's all sorts of excitement, something that doesn't usually happen during a Shabbat service. Okay. What should we sing as a closing song?
So, let's see. Page 192 in your prayer books. So Matovu is a morning prayer. So it's very difficult to close with what's an opening morning prayer. But Noam Katz wrote a great version that's a great closing version of this. I've done it before, but I probably only do it once a year, so I'll do a little nigun of it so you remember it or learn it. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya on, do it again. Ya la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la. Let's add matovu. Mama. We're going to do mama. Okay? Mama tovu. You ready? Mama tovu. Oh, oh, halecha. Oh, oh, halecha. Ya Yaakov. Mishkenotecha. Mishkenotecha. Yisrael. A little tricky. Let's try it again. Mama tovu, oh, oh, halecha, oh, oh, halecha, ya Yaakov, mishkenotecha, mishkenotecha, Yisrael. I don't expect you to sing the verse, you can just listen. V'ani berov chastecha, Ahava v'techa, shtachavecha kodshecha, be'yiratecha. Here we go. Mama tovu, oh, halecha, oh, halecha, ya Yaakov, mishkenotecha, mishkenotecha, Yisrael. Let's do that one last time. It's catchy, right? Mama tovu, oh, halecha, oh, halecha, ya Yaakov, mishkenotecha, mishkenotecha, Yisrael.
Baruch atem b'vorechem, Baruch atem b'tzeitchem. Blessed were you when you came into the house of God, and blessed may you be as you go forth. As we enter these new frontiers in the future, help us to remember what it is that makes us human, and help us to find spaces like this where we can celebrate that. Our humor, our experiences, our wisdom, and our love for each other. And let us say, Amen.
May God bless you and protect you. May God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May God turn to you in blessing. May God turn to you in blessing and give you peace. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Hey.
Shabbat shalom.
Hey.
Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Hey, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Please join us for some oneg.